Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another great episode. Kim and I were just talking beforehand about how we've had some really fun connections with some of our listeners, and just really amazing times with some of our guests. And that sort of plays into a little bit of today's episode. And Kim has the topic for us. You want to just kind of bring it again?
Sure. This is actually take two. So I have to tell you, it's a little ironic that we're talking about connections today. And when we did take one, Josh's internet connection completely failed. So this is take two. And we're talking about connections today. And we have been having some really cool connections. I would say kingdom connections, but honestly, I'm not sure that there are many connections that are made that aren't actually kingdom.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that. So we've been able to connect with some really cool guests. We've been able to connect with really cool listeners. We've been able to have a few of our listeners on who we only just met through the podcast. Like, people reach out and then we have a conversation, and then we get to have a public conversation with them. And I think that is super cool because I know that there are plenty of people with notoriety and they have made a name for themselves in kind of this movement. But I also know that there are a lot of people who are doing a lot of big work and doing a lot of things for the kingdom that maybe don't have familiar names to everyone. And so I really love having everybody on. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, well, we were also talking about this before, but being able to see Christ in people. And when you're able to see the Christ in someone, it isn't just the platform that you see, you see them and you see their purpose, and it doesn't matter if it's big or small, it's important.
Yeah.
And then it's opens up your whole world to where everybody's interesting. I heard somebody say once that if you're talking to someone and it's not an interesting conversation, then you're the one that's not asking the right questions or engaging the right way. And I was like, wow, that it just puts the responsibility on you to be okay, so, there's definitely times I've talked to people and I'm like, man, I just didn't feel a connection. It's well, what was I putting into that interaction?
Mm-hmm.
And if I was looking for Christ in them while I was having that interaction, it wouldn't have mattered what we were talking about. It would have been more interesting.
That's a good reminder. That's a super good reminder. Well, I was just reminded today. So I got to have a conversation on the day that this is recorded, not the day that this is released, but on the day that this was recorded. I got to have a really great introductory conversation with one of our listeners who just reached out through Discord. So if you also want to chat with us, I mean, truly just reach out through Discord because we're real people. And it's kind of part of who we are is we love making connections, and it's part of what we carry. But anyway, I got to talk with this really great person and hear a little bit about her story and her journey and what she's involved with now. And we talked a little bit more about, she had some questions that for some things that I had said in an episode before, and we got to talk about some of that. And it was just instant friendship and instant camaraderie. And I honestly think this is the way that the kingdom is supposed to operate. And I think it all has to do with connection. So even if we don't both carry exactly the same blueprint or not the same destiny, or we're not going to outwork our calling the same way in the earth, whatever, I think that we're related enough because we know our Father and we know our big brother, that it kind of doesn't matter. And it actually becomes this beautiful connection point. Think of a circuit board and all of the different connections that happen, and not every part of the circuit is directly connected to every other piece of it, finger to finger, just directly connected, but it is all connected. And there's this energy that runs through it, and all the parts are important. And that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, let's do it. What, like, is there something about it that I don't know. I guess my thought is like, what about that was like the intriguing part that you're like, we got to do this.
I think it's just that it's happening more and more, honestly. And it's not that I've ever not valued that before, but I feel like it's becoming more and more valuable as time goes on. And to be very honest, I've been in other situations recently, um, even with people who I think love the Lord, um, who have also made connections, or really good at making connections with us and with other people, but have tried to hold that as kind of ransom.
Mm,
And it just kind of grossed me out a little bit, because I think it's such a kingdom concept. And though I do see the value in it, and I also really truly believe in trading and exchange of value. And I do think connections are very valuable. It was an interesting thing to see it held in a way that wasn't so righteous.
sure.
Do you know what I mean? And it really made me value even more some of these connections that are made, and they're made for the simple fact of connecting
Mm-hmm.
and for having those points of energy shared and being part of the whole and all of that. And it just is, what a breath of fresh air.
There's like, I mean, I know this is so overdone, but like when you think about being the body of Christ, like you want to connect with other people because not out of a like, what can I get type of mindset, but more of like, no, like it's better. Everything functions better when more of the body is connected. Like your hand moves better when the ligaments and tendons and muscles are connected and moving properly. And so there's part of this that's like you said, it's like seeking out connection, but from like this righteous place. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just because you want to be connected.
Right.
And it isn't, oh, I want to be connected from an orphan spirit. And it's not, oh, I want to be connected so I can use you. It's, I want to be connected to my body.
Right.
That just like it changes the way you approach every connection and every relationship when you approach it as just genuinely, I want to know you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
for sure. Well, and I think I keep going back to this. I think there's a synergy that happens.
Mm.
And I think that so many of us have been longing for so long to see the kingdom on the earth, right? On earth as it is in heaven. And the more we're able to make these synergistic connections and start operating as the body operates, not disjointed, but as one fluid movement, right? Like we're all in this together. We all are doing our own thing that we're supposed to be doing, but we're working for a common cause, right? And I think the more I see that, the more I'm just like, wow, how valuable is this? And also, I can look back and think, wow, I remember when we were totally missing it, you know? And this seeking after oneness is truly like one of the keys to seeing the kingdom in the earth. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
It really makes me think about our like action series we did last year, who is like the goal of it was each week we did a different action, and one of them was like connection with yourself, connection with nature, connection with the divine, connection with um other people, like just piece by piece connection. And it was like, that was a big piece. And it was like, hmm, it's just that intentionality of like, let's put your focus in this place for a week and see what happens. And I think that opened a lot of the doors for us to um, kind of be able to see these things in a different way. Like we've been practicing, what does this look like? And maybe we're not as consistent as we should, or like there's still a lot of room to grow, but like it just makes me think, yeah, like this has been on our heart for a year now. Like that's kind of crazy. That was like Action July. We're almost there.
We are almost to July again. That's wild. Uh yeah, I think you're right on with that. But I was thinking about, so it's the opposite of connection, division, separation. So we just did an episode about the illusion of separation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that wasn't actually planned, for the record, to do connection after the illusion of separation. Um, but I think it kind of goes hand in hand. And I was just thinking about even this being an election year in the US, um, and the state of politics as they have been for the last 4 years or so in this country. It's been like full of tension and full of division. If you're not for me, you're against me.
Sure.
And it's not even against the person. It is like, if you're not on the same side of the party line as me, then we can't be connected. We are divided. There's nothing in common. And what I'm seeing with all of this like organic connection happening, it's really stepping outside of anything that might want to pull and anything that might want to divide. So whether it's party lines or denominational lines or big religion lines or gender lines or age lines or
Any of the
education lines,
lines in
whatever
general.
lines.
Yeah.
I think that when we do exactly what you were saying, Josh, when we look for the Christ in others, when we look for our creator in others first, then that's when those lines dissolve and they cannot matter anymore.
Mm.
And then it doesn't matter what wants to pull us in one direction or another. There can't be division because it's really an illusion of this separation.
There's this thought. I feel like we've probably talked about it, but that God doesn't ever judge down, he judges up. So if he judges you, he's like reminding you who you are, pulling you back up to your real identity. Like um, he's not tearing you down. Um, and to some extent, I would say that's what we're called to do with those around us. And if you're constantly looking, it's with that lens. Even if you see a shortcoming, it's not the shortcoming that matters. It's the like reminding them who they are so that they can be the fullness. And it's like, yeah, it just takes any condemnation out of even how you would respond in a situation. Like even how you would respond in a situation where someone is being hateful or rough towards you. Like if you're like, no, like I can see that that's not who they are and I can see who they're supposed to be, then it's like, oh, then whatever is in you that's fighting against them, it goes away and it it will change the situation. I don't want to say it totally will stop it, but like it'll change the situation and give you perspective, which is our favorite thing to talk about.
It is our favorite thing to talk about. Yeah, I don't know. What else do you think about connection?
Well, I think another piece of connection is like we've talked about being sovereign sons and like taking back governance. over your own life. And that requires more work. Like it's not it's not less tasks. I don't want to say it's hard, but it's like you have to be aware, you have to be governing, you have to be monitoring your thoughts and monitoring your actions and like governing your whole being. And I think part of connection is twofold. One, others can step in and help. And so it takes some of the weight off of you. And the other side of that coin is then you're governing with another real human. And that is bound to lead towards a handful of challenging moments and conversations and feelings. And so it's more work. Like it's more work to be connected to someone, but I think it's infinitely better. It's like a multiplication effect. And I know the Bible
Yeah.
talks about this in so many different ways. Like, is it easier to just be by yourself and to rule your own life? Yes. But is it better? No. Like it's not it's not like one plus one. It's like a multiplication. It isn't just an addition when you start connecting with people.
No, I was just in this conversation I was having with our listener, Amy, today. I was just talking about it was kind of about my journey and how I had talked about there came a point when the Lord told me not to follow any teachers that he wanted to teach me. And it was when I was talking to Amy, I was telling her about it and kind of gave her this example that it was like I start seeing truth from the Father and through his eyes, and I'm wrestling with it with him. But having people around me who are also on a journey, maybe it doesn't even have to be the same spot in the journey, right? Who are willing and open to hear what's going on with that and wrestle through it with me and challenge and agree and edify and all of these things with it is it's messier, but it's so very helpful because it spurs you to keep going. And I think there's sometimes that even in our own personal journeys, when we are relying solely on the Lord, it can become easy to get comfortable with where you are with him because it feels good. And you've got the things figured out up until then. And he is peace and he is love and he is sovereign and he is perfect in every way. And so you kind of can rest easy there. But when you have that connectedness with other people, I can't tell you how important it is to have people who will spur you on to continue going and continue moving forward and stretch you and challenge and affirm and all of those things because it then causes you to go deeper in your relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a beautiful balance. Because I don't know. I guess I'm not somebody who wants to just sit in the same spot forever.
Yeah. No, I think it's that sitting. Yeah, I don't think either one of us are like very good at wanting to be stagnant.
Right.
Nothing is good that's stagnant.
Right.
And it's like you can get into a place of complacency or just like um where you're just used to it. You're just accustomed to how it feels. But it's not necessarily fun to be there.
Right. It's familiar.
It's familiar, but it's not necessarily where even in that there I think there's part of you that's like, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Like I know or maybe not even shouldn't be doing this, but I know there's something better. Like
Yeah.
I know there's another option.
I know there's more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We talk about the optimal path somewhat often. Like that there is it's not necessarily good and bad choices, but there is an optimal path. There is an optimal choice in situations. And I have found myself lately like really looking for, well, what is that? What is the optimal choice in this? Like what is what's the it's not even that just movement is wrong,
Yeah.
or that like I we've talked about this before. Like I believe that um there's a part of life where God just wants you to move and then he'll direct you. And so it's not that I'm worried about going the wrong way because I believe he'll show me the right way. But yeah, I think it's just like stay moving and stay reaching for connection, stay reaching for like the life and the Christ and everyone around you.
You know what else? I think I talked to you about this a little bit, Josh, a few weeks ago. I had this really quick epiphany, which is probably not epiphanic for anyone. Can I make up words on this podcast?
Of course.
Okay. It probably is not an epiphany for anyone else, but I was having just a quick time with the Lord, and I realized one day that God isn't like the God in heaven where we have to go like try to find him. And
Mm,
he isn't just in us, but in this world, he's in connections that are made. So whether it is you touching another person, holding somebody's hand, or if it is um, you making eye contact with somebody across the room, or you just noticing a tree, like when a connection is made, that's where he's present. And you know that scripture that says where two or more are gathered, there I am as well, or however it's worded. Just pretend that's from a version, right? Like there's one of the versions that says it like that.
yeah.
Okay, but he says this, and all of a sudden I had this like mind-blowing moment where it's like, oh, it's because there has to be a connection.
Mm,
And yes, there's this arcing principle that has actually been talked about in the mystic movement for a very long time. But I just had that moment where I was like, oh, it's because he's in the connection. Like he is the substance of the connection. And to me, it was a little shifting for me. I don't know. Like it really shifted how I thought about him because I've had moments in my life where I do think he's just the God in heaven and I can't reach him. And I just hope that my prayers get there, right? I'm just
mm,
throwing them up there, hoping that he catches them. And there have been those really intimate moments where I feel like there is no separation and he is in me and I am in him and there is all of that. But in this world, it was like wildly encouraging to me to see him in those connections. So he's not just with me and he's not just with you, but there's that connection that's made and he's there and he's that kind of weaves it together. And I love it.
yeah. It's like mm, it's just like shifting your mindset from like what is the space between you and I? Is it empty or is it full of God? And if it's full of God, then when we make connections, he's in it, around it, through it. Like it's everything.
It's everything. That is mind boggling to me. And it also makes me think about, how it says that all of creation is groaning or longing for the manifest sons of God. Um, I just think about in the experiences, even that we've shared together, Josh, with engaging with creation. It was like when we would make a connection with creation, that was when we would see it respond.
Yeah.
And then if I apply this that I've just epiphanized, to that, then it's because God is in that connection. Because the substance of him is evident in that when we make that connection with him. Yes, he's in us. And yes, he created them, but they recognize it. That connection, they get him. And I love it. I'm telling you, I love it.
I think it's great. Yeah. I don't know. I would love to hear. Okay, well, I would love to hear from the listeners on their experiences with connection, but I would also just love to connect with more of our listeners.
True.
So we've already had several people we've connected with and had conversations with who were just listeners, and we would love to do that more. So reach out on YouTube, send us an email, go to join our Discord, and shoot us a message, like however you want to do it. We would love, like, especially on this episode being about connection, we would love to connect with more of you.
Absolutely. And you know what? If you go to the Discord, you can connect with other people too. So it doesn't even have to be about connecting with us. We love the connections, but also we love a connection being made.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. Good stuff today, Josh. Thanks for participating.
Thanks for bringing the topic.
Oh, it's fun. Okay, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you.
Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.